This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, EOF Summer Scholars. It is July 29th, Wednesday. Our theme for the week continuing today is Student Early Alert, the responsibility of the learner. And today we are actually going to engage in a Cengage assessment called College Success Factors Index. And what that index is going to measure are your strengths and your areas of growth. So this is just going to add to the inventory or student success inventory so that you'll better understand, along with your learning styles, your personality. We took that personality test, and also adding to that your strengths and areas of growth for your academics. This particular assessment through Cengage is free, of course, with your Cengage subscription. And what it will do is you'll discover your behaviors and attitudes in 10 different domains, actually. And once you complete the assessment, you will receive recommendations within each of the areas. It will give you your indicator as it relates to the nation, where you fall in terms of nationwide statistics among college students who have taken this same test. If you are in range above or below, and if you fall below the average, then that just means that it's definitely an area where you can find some improvement and use some strategies. And also the Likert scale that'll be used for this particular assessment, you'll be asked to select strongly agree, undecided. So if you're completely neutral, you'd select undecided, disagree, or strongly disagree. Are there any questions about the scale? And let me just bring up the MindTap directions here. You can see what the statements are: strongly agree, agree, undecided, disagree, or strongly disagree. Are there any questions regarding the scale? Okay, I see Christy said no. I don't know what your response is unless you type it in the chat. So to access this morning, there's no real presentation. Just know that you will need to open another window, and you'll need to log in to your Cengage subscription. Or actually, I don't know, perhaps you can get right there through the link. Let's try that. See if I click that link, what happens.
I used the link, and all it asked me for was my email and password, and it just took me right to my regular Cengage.
Yep, and I just clicked the link also, Dina, and it's doing exactly the same thing. Welcome, Tiffany, to this inventory, and that's probably for me because I was already logged in. So what I need for you to do is click the link and take a moment, and I believe this is a more lengthy assessment than the assessments that we've taken before. I think the other assessments were about 30 questions or maybe 60 questions. I believe this assessment may be up to 100 questions, but it's going to give you an incredible report that you will have for your own personal inventory, student success inventory, and then it will provide me with a cohort aggregate, so that way I can see holistically amongst all 21 of you what your strengths and areas for growth are, so that moving forward I'm able to create programming and academic support that will move everyone forward as a group. Are there any questions? Type in the chat if everyone has been able to access the inventory. Just yes, indicate yes if you're in and you're started. And Barbara and Lisa, you can probably just take a pause because it's going to take the students probably a few minutes to complete that. So I will stop recording while they're taking the assessment. And I'll just monitor the chat or monitor the participants to see if we get any of the students who are not here that join us, so that way we can give them instruction on what to do. Oh, I'm sorry, Brandon, that's a good question. So when you log in, we're only going to do the first assessment, okay? And that first assessment is called Learn Your Strengths and Areas for Growth. So when you click into that, thank you so much, Brandon, because that is really important. I think I had it on my other screen. Let's see, manage courses. So once you log into the MindTap course, you will, and what's it called? Okay, you will see, course. It's the first one, take charge of your success. You're gonna click that, and then you're only gonna do this, learn your strengths and areas for growth. Okay. I'll type it in the chat. And then I'll say only. Does everyone see where I'm at? Okay, everyone's good to go now. Thumbs up. Yes, yes, yes. I see a bunch of yeses. Type in the chat if you're having a problem. Just let me know if you're having a problem. Okay, looks like everyone's good to go. I'm going to mute everyone just because there's a little feedback. Oh, Kevin, you're having a problem. So what can I do for you? What is going on? Talk to me, Kevin. Oh, your password. So if you don't remember your Cengage password, you may have to go in and do a password reset. And they should email you a link so that you can reset your password. And once you reset your password, you should be able to log right back in and take the assessment. Kevin, give that a try and let me know if that works. So is anyone other than Kevin having an issue, or is everyone in? Type yes if you're okay. I'm in. Good, good, good. Okay. Awesome. All right, I'm going to turn off the record.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, next up we'll have Rose Lynch doing a presentation on test anxiety. And Rose, let me share the screen. Let me give you control. Let's see. Move everyone over. Here you go. Okay, Rose, you are now the organizer, and you should be able to share your screen and control everything.
With me for a second. Let's get the slideshow. Okay, can everybody see the first slide there? Combating test anxiety and effective test taking. I hope you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sure you guys may be familiar with some of the strategies that we're going to discuss later on in the presentation, and some strategies may be new to some of you. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. What I'd like you all to do is, let's first get okay. So good morning, and our first slide is a pop quiz. Surprise! So I would like for each of you to take out a piece of paper, a pen or a pencil. I'll give you a second to do that.
Type in the chat ready once you have a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper out so that Rose knows that she can proceed to the next step.
Looks like everybody's ready.
Awesome. So you're going to write your first and last name in the top left-hand corner of the page. Okay. Then I want you to write the numbers 1 through 25 down the left-hand side of the page. You can, if you're using lined paper, skip a line in between. Okay, is everybody ready? Now, this pop quiz is worth 25% of your EOF summer program grade. So just be mindful of this. All right. All right, let's begin. Well, actually, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is that there really isn't a pop quiz. The bad news is I made you waste a piece of paper. So, although keep that piece of paper because you might need it a little bit later. But so what I would like to talk to you guys about is, what did you experience when you heard that this quiz was occurring? Physiologically, what are some of the things that happened to you?
I was a little nervous, but nothing else.
Okay. Anybody else?
I don't know if this falls under physiologically or emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just about done with this EOF program. I was not having it.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
This was a nice, fresh piece of college ruled paper.
Don't get rid of it.
Ruined. Like, honestly, my OCD is kicking in and my hand is twitching. This is terrible.
Right. So for a lot of people who experience test anxiety, they may feel sweaty. whether your hands began feeling sweaty. There may have been an increase in your heart rate. Some people feel nauseous. What about mentally?
Well, Rose, before you move on, Jabari said he felt confused.
Okay.
And Ashley said that she felt like being at home helped with some of the anxiety. So maybe
All right.
being in familiar surroundings. And then Aaliyah said she was just straight up scared.
I don't blame
Some
you.
of you were like, what the hell? Right? What
Way
are we
to start the
possibly going to
morning.
be quizzed on, right?
Yep.
What about emotionally? Anything further to add with your experience?
Distraught.
Okay. So some people also probably might have felt angry. Like, all right, I've had enough. Oops, where's my clicker? You might have felt betrayed because nobody told you, right? And or stressed out, right? So let's regroup. I know I raised that level of anxiety, and that was so that you could experience it as opposed to just talk about it. And while it didn't mean to be a nasty trick, but here's some things to make you smile and hopefully ease your tension. This link at the top, it's a YouTube video of babies laughing, which always makes people happy. Being that we have a difficulty of you guys not being able to hear videos, there isn't much dialogue that goes along with it. So by putting it on CC, closed captioned wouldn't really have done anything. But hopefully these smiling dog and cat will ease your tension. And if not, you can click on that YouTube video link and it'll take you, it's for quadruplets cracking up at their dad who's videotaping. So, all right. Deep breath. So what caused your experiences? Those physiological, emotional, what are some of the causes that you can attribute to?
I'm not a very good test taker, so whenever I just hear test or quiz, I just like black out, freak out. It's like my head just goes to like a black screen basically. Like I can't remember anything. Like I can know the answer. Like for other classes, not this time. It's just I just get so anxious that I forget everything.
And that happens to a lot of people. And it's kind of situational in that you didn't have that experience 2 seconds before I announced it, right? So the fact that it was unexpected, that's the whole pop part of a pop quiz, right? You don't know when it's coming. And I don't know that, maybe in math or I don't know what college professors specifically like pop quizzes, but ultimately, it's basically a pop quiz is just a check-in to see if you've been keeping up with the work, really. So some of the other things that you guys, the fact that you didn't know what was going to be on what possibly could I have been testing you on, right? So you weren't sure of the test material. Probably felt unprepared, as was mentioned, didn't study. Anything else you guys can think of? All right, well, I also indicated the fear of the unknown, right? Those are all contributing factors of test anxiety. So some people, it might have just rolled off their back, like, okay, we'll just dive in and see what happens. So, but what is test anxiety? Some of the symptoms, we talked about racing heartbeat, nausea, and sweatiness, and that kind of thing, and being nervous. Anything else that you can think of or that you might experience yourself?
Self-doubt.
Good. So the ones that I had included in this slide were racing thoughts. That could be certainly a self-doubt thought process. And it also relates to, I forget who mentioned the fact that once they heard this quiz was coming, that they were ready to pack up and call it a day. You know, that it's unfortunate that those types of thoughts and something like this has that power to turn your whole world around. So it's really important to find strategies to move beyond that, because you're in all of your your journey, you're going to be faced with stuff that's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to take you outside of your comfort level and really impact your path. So being able to just recognizing it for what it is and doing the best you can to develop those strategies where that anxiety can lessen. So in addition to racing thoughts, fast heartbeat, nervousness, headache, inability to concentrate. Somebody mentioned how everything just goes black. The nauseousness, feelings of dread, and obviously the self-doubt talk as well. And some of the causes, let's talk about that. What do you guys think would fall under this category of test anxiety in general?
Maybe because you want to do good, and like if you do bad on this quiz, it can take your grade down.
Yeah. Yep, there's expectations of perfection, right? Many students strive for that A. Some people are just striving to get a C to pass so that they can earn the credits and move on, and that's fine. And it is scary to think, oh, you know, if I fail this, what's going to happen? Or, you know, those are common occurrences, and it's not unusual to feel that. Anything else? Any additional causes?
Well, for me, I used to have a lot of math anxiety, especially for tests. And the reason was because I'd always traditionally done bad in math. So it was kind of, and Dina kind of makes mention of it, that she has a habit of sort of the anxiety before tests. And it's just something that's ingrained in you in there. So for me, math, I always had this already built-in anxiety because I knew I wasn't good at it. So I didn't expect perfection, but I also didn't want to fail. And so, you know, that goes hand in hand. I had my current dissertation chair told me the other day, she goes, you have to stop trying for perfection, and you have to start focusing on, what did she say? I think she said, instead of perfection, doing really well or something like that, because perfection is impossible. So if you strive for perfection, you're never going to hit that mark, and you're only going to continue to disappoint yourself.
Yep. There was a time, well, my first college experience wasn't a very good one. I was right out of high school, and I went to college because it was the thing to do. I really didn't have a direction in mind. But so by the time, it only lasted a semester and a half at that, and then I quit taking a year off, which turned into 13 years. came back to Warren County Community College, give it a fresh go. And as I mentioned, you know, I was a poor reader, and I promised myself I was going to read everything and just fix everything that I didn't do well in high school, to turn my thinking around and all of that. There was a point in time where, while I continued to strive for A's, that it wasn't until I was working on my bachelor's degree that it was like, oh my God, I just can't keep. I had an expectation of myself that all my ducks needed to be in a row, and I was driving myself crazy. And I came to a point where it's like, you know what, a B or a B plus is just as good as an A, in terms of I needed to also protect what was left of my sanity to move forward. You know, and that's key. I mean, you can choose to live in a self-imposed pressure cooker. You know, the level of heat is in your control. That's not to say that, you know, you should be like, oh, it's no big deal, I'm not going to try, or I gave 5 minutes of time studying, and you know, what I know is what I know. You know, but giving it the old college try and giving it your all and your best effort is going to go a long way. So some of the other causes is just the lack of adequate prep time. If you walk into a test that you didn't spend any time or 5 minutes studying, what are the chances of you doing well? Probably very low. And as Lisa mentioned, you know, the bad test taking experiences, or just knowing that, okay, math is not my thing, and it's not a lot of people's thing. So, but Lisa, and I'm sure you've had to take, I don't know how many math classes that you had to enroll in, but I'm sure you figured out a way to pass them, and whether it was, you know, doing study groups or whatever it was, you came up with something that was going to work for you. And that's the key, finding the causes of what's, you know, where these anxieties, the test anxiety is coming from, and what you can do to combat it is going to lessen the anxiety and ultimately, hopefully, make it go away. So so in combating test anxiety, I again go back to the fact that you really have the power to combat it, and it probably seems bigger and uglier than it really is. If you put things into proper perspectives, in the fact that it's not the end of the world if you fail a test. Now, clearly, if you're failing every single test that you take in a particular class, you're not going to earn the credits. So you have to develop strategies that's going to work for you to keep that monster at bay, and give it the appropriate amount of acknowledgement. Okay, you know that it's there, but it doesn't have to be this huge thing, because the power of your mind does a lot in helping you move through things. You know, when you're practicing, you know, doing sample tests, or doing something like that, like if you're doing this at the end of a chapter, reviewing the test questions or the review questions, a lot of times those very questions are what's on a test, because the publisher will give like these canned, for a lot of courses, they might give these canned test banks for the professors, and they'll utilize them, and they're basically highlighting the information that is in the review, the important pieces of the chapter located at the end in the review section. So if you're immersing yourself after reading the chapter and testing your knowledge, revisiting those review questions, it's going to help you retain that information and develop a comfort level. That's what hopefully you're striving for, is a comfort level and not a panic level when you're walking into a test. Practice doesn't make necessarily perfect, but makes a comfort level. Just another story about my experience about being in college. One of the things, you guys know that I wasn't a good reader and that I hated to read. The other thing that caused me a lot of anxiety was public speaking. And and I don't remember, I'm sorry, I don't know which student said that my quiz was sending her packing up for the EOF program. But when I would read a syllabus, I remember being in one of the English classes and getting the syllabus where it talked about, an oral presentation. I would immediately, just as I read that, I would just about break out in hives. I would hyperventilate, and I'd be thinking, I have to go downstairs and drop this class because they are going to expect me to do public speaking. And I just had this lots of racing thoughts on how the heck can I get out of this situation. I realized, it's a required class. There is no getting out of it. I just have to suck it up and make it happen. And to the point where the speech class that was required for my degree program, I waited until my very last semester here to take that class. And as a way of trying to lessen the amount of students that I'd have to speak in front of, I took like an 8 o'clock in the morning class because I figured a lot less students would sign up for it, which I was right. We had probably, I think there was 8 students in the class initially, and like 2 of them dropped the class later on. So there was only a very small group of us that I had to do my public speaking for. But I learned strategies in that class that really helped me combat my anxiety over public speaking. And I at that point, I had really wished that I had taken that class much sooner in my college journey so that I could have utilized those strategies and been a better public speaker, when an oral presentation occurred. That same year, so that was in 1999 that I took, it was the spring class of 1999 that I took that class, and then my speech class. And then at graduation, we had one vice president at the time, and she had asked me to present an award at graduation to a community member. And I felt honored to be asked, and I couldn't say no, but in the same, my headspace, I'm like, oh my God, there's hundreds of people that go to these graduations. How am I gonna stand up there and not pass out and not look like an idiot? So I typed up my speech. I carried that piece of paper with me everywhere I went. I would sit on the front seat of my car when I was in the car, and when I would be at a stoplight, I would read this speech. And I did it for, I don't know, a week or 2 prior to the graduation ceremony. And by the time that I had to deliver the speech, I went up to the podium, and while I had my paper, as I was shaking in my hands, I was able to, like, that piece of paper really was just a safety net, because I had done it so many times that it just came out naturally. And my family, who knew what a coward I was about public speaking, I shouldn't say coward, it truly was an anxiety provoking thing for me. They were very impressed with the fact that they couldn't tell that I was nervous, but it was just like with anything, just making the decision to tackle it. And I could have, ultimately told the vice president that, I'm sorry, I can't, or whatever. I could have made up an excuse, but I opted to just make it happen. And so I've had to do public speaking ever since. Like I said, it just helps you develop a better comfort level for things the more you're exposed to it. Anybody have anything to add? So I want you, for those of you who do get experience test anxiety, I want you to start thinking of testing as merely a snapshot in time in which you're given the opportunity to share your level of knowledge. That's all that the professors are doing. It's a periodic check-in. Am I getting through to you? Are you understanding the material? That's their means of doing that. And yes, there's a grade attached because they have to assess your level of knowledge and how well the information is being received. So if you kind of look at it that way, as opposed to this adverse experience, like, so you think you know what you're talking about, prove it kind of thing. That's not the approach. It's show me what you know about what I've been trying to teach you. So so here are some 10 tips to overcome anxiety. The first one is being prepared. Obviously, if you're walking into a test or even a quiz, a pop quiz, if you've been on top of your reading assignments, you've done your homework assignments, you're going to be in the know of what is being asked of you to recall. So you should have an increased confidence level by doing that. So you definitely also want to get a good night's sleep. It's definitely more beneficial than cramming. And I know I'm guilty of cramming myself because, again, there is only so much time in a day. And if you're working full time and your family responsibilities, it can truly be difficult carving out the time to make, a study plan for 3 weeks. But if you're kind of develop a plan, whether it's and devote study blocks of time within your week, and then obviously the subject matter of what you're studying will change from day to day, depending on what your due dates are and what tests are coming up and that sort of thing. But a good night's sleep certainly does a lot as well. So you want to make sure you eat nutritious foods for ongoing energy, not a sugary whatever that you end up crashing before your test. Here we go. So be on time or early if possible, because feeling rushed will only amp up your anxiety. I also want to mention when I took that speech class, I found that I would be, when the professor would ask for a volunteer to go first, I actually would volunteer to be the first person to do my speech. And the reason was I didn't, if I waited until like I was the last person, it just meant that I wouldn't be paying attention to anybody else's speech. Excuse me. And it just was that much more time that I would be steeping in this this negative energy, and I didn't want that. So I would volunteer to go first, and then I would do my thing, and then I was able to, you know, shake it off and sit down and actually enjoy what I was hearing my peers talk about. So again, go ahead.
I was going to say, I had kind of the opposite. I never volunteered to go first, but the other students would volunteer me to go first because they knew I was prepared and none of them were. And one time I got points off because I went over my time because nobody else was prepared. So, you know, it's never good to show up on test day or speech day unprepared. And there's something I want to make clear because I see this happening all the time. Once you're in college, there's no guarantee that you can have a makeup test or a makeup speech. Some professors are nice in doing that, but if you don't show up on test day, that doesn't automatically mean you're going to get another chance to do that test. And I see it a lot where students on test day or on speech day or on the day their papers are due just don't show up for class, and somehow because they didn't show up, it didn't actually happen. And it doesn't work that way in college. You're only lucky if your professor allows you to retake something or to turn something in late. So you have to get used to deadlines, and you have to get used to working with those deadlines. A lot of times, if you do get to turn in something late, it's going to be with points off, so you're not going to get the highest grade possible that you could have gotten. So don't put off getting your work done or being prepared, because it's only going to affect you in a negative way. And that's the way college is. You either get it done when it's done or when it's supposed to be done, or else you miss that chance. And your tests make up a decent percentage of your final grade in classes. So depending on where you want to be after WCCC, those grades in those classes, I think I mentioned it before, really matter. So you can't blow off assignments or tests or speech days because you're not ready. You have to learn how to be ready. Okay, and you cannot let anxiety keep you from being ready, because believe me, I completely understand it. I'm in that situation right now with something I'm working on, and I keep putting it off because I have a lot of anxiety about it. But I realize I have to jump in feet first and get it done, because that's what has to happen in order for me to progress through my own college career. So, you know, you're not alone either. Many people feel your same anxiety. Many people have a hard time being prepared when they feel anxiety. You're not alone in that, but you're the only one who can motivate yourself to get moving. So you have to work on that, and you have to really just put one foot in front of the other and get things done.
And focusing on the satisfaction that you'll feel once you get this task completed
Yes.
could also be its own reward. So you're not, again, steeping in this negative feeling. So having a positive mental attitude also, you know, it is a key thing to kind of getting yourself out of that that vicious cycle that we kind of think about. Think of your happy place. You can recite a morale boosting mantras like I can do this, or I worked hard and I deserve this. You know, I've got this. All of those things, the more you say that to yourself, the more you believe it.
And here's the thing about that, you know, it sounds kind of kooky, like I'm going to believe this if I say this, but there's this whole study or branch of study about cognitive change and being able to change your thought patterns just by focusing on something else. So instead of focusing on negative, you focus on that positive, and it has been proven scientifically to help change how you see things. So for a lot of us, myself included, our first thoughts might go to the negative. Well, I can't do this, or I'm not going to have time to do this. But instead, you have to turn that around in your mind and say, you know what, I'm going to get this done. I don't know yet how, but I am going to get this done, and I can do this. And it really does work. It changes the thought patterns in your brain, and it will help you to become a more positive and a person. And the more positive you are in your thoughts, the higher the chances are that you're going to be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly. Thank you, Lisa. So additional tips. You want to make sure you read your directions and all answers carefully. Sometimes the answers, like for a multiple choice test, you know, if they have the words never, sometimes, always, or whatever, those, you know, make sure that you're paying attention to those key type of things. And that you're reading the instructions, because you know, especially like even in an essay, you may, you know, the professor's asking you for one or maybe a multifaceted response. And if you're only focused on one aspect of those facets, you're not going to get full credit. So you definitely want to make sure that you're rereading what you're writing to make sure that it's addressing the questions that you're being asked. When we talked about essay writing, that was also something I struggled with. When I took Western Civ 1 with Bonnie Durkin, she's I never really paid much attention to history. It wasn't something that I was particularly interested in. And again, because there was a lot of reading involved, I typically didn't do it in high school. So when I came back to college and I was immersed in this class, and I'm like, I'm going to read everything there is to read in this course. And I was learning it basically for the first time. So everything that came out of that woman's mouth, I was writing down. Back in the olden days, she would use, it was a projector, a transparency projector thing. You guys probably don't even know what that is. But I would write down everything this woman said. And then when it came time to prepare for the midterm, and you get those lovely little blue blank books that you're supposed to just fill up with all of your wonderful knowledge, I would panic because I didn't even, I had difficulty even studying for the test because everything she said seemed so important. So I was trying to cram, you know, half a semester's worth of information in my head. I'm sure I tried cramming for that as well. And when we got the test back, the graded tests, I got at the very bottom of the blue book on the right-hand corner, it said F++, see me after class. And I said, so I went to her after class and I said, you know, I'm a big girl. What's with the plus? I could have taken just a regular F. She goes, Rose, I see that you're really trying. I see you taking notes. And I said, you know, I want to pass this class, but I'm having difficulty identifying what it is that, you know, how to study properly for it. Whoops, wait a second. Sorry, guys. Oh, and my computer's dying. Okay. So having a conversation with her, one of the things that she mentioned multiple strategies that I can implement. One of which, when I go to do an essay response, she said, just start developing a rough outline of everything you know about that particular topic. And then the more you, like on a piece of scrap paper, and by doing that, you know, it will lead to the details of what else do you remember and how is that interacting with other information that you know about this, and what did it lead to, and that sort of thing. And by the time, like I just had a better understanding of how to move forward in her class. She also said, you know, if you hear me repeat something multiple times, she said, put a star next to it or highlight it, because those are the topics that you're likely to see as a question on your test. So I started paying attention to those cues and those clues, and I ended up with a B in the class after getting an F++ on my midterm. So there is hope, but you know, understanding of what the expectation is a very key piece. So even if you're just looking at that blank book, I mean, clearly we've got a little bit of a different testing, you know, mode at this point in time with the remote learning stuff. But just in general, making sure that you know, just start somewhere. And the more you are able to start, whether it's, you know, even just answering the easiest questions that you absolutely know first, will help get the ball rolling and move you forward with the class, with the test. So I also want to focus on your pace, not your peers. Have you ever been in a class where, you know, you're in a challenging, yeah, a test that's taking some time, or that it's really kind of causing you to to think hard, and you have, you know, people at 10 minutes in, they're walking up and handing in their papers like they're okay, they're done. And if you internalized it like I did, like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why, you know, this, I must be dumb because people are just getting it done and handing it in so much quicker than I was able to do. And I came to realize that, guess what? They, you know, I've taught a couple of classes, and I realized that, you know, the people, most of the people handing in things 5-10 minutes into a test that's supposed to take them a full period aren't giving that test their full attention, and didn't, I'm guessing, do their best work. They just kind of blew it off, and they like and did it half-heartedly. So just focus on your pace and what's going on with you. Also be mindful of the time. I know a lot of students get panicked if they, for a timed test, you know, just knowing that the time is ticking down. Just like you have to budget your time in a day. We only have 24 hours in a day. So how are you going to manage that time? And maybe, is it Shama, I forget who the name of the student that was talking about the excellent time management, you know, strategies, and that he scored off the chart. It just helps you to make sure that you are going to be able to address and share your level of knowledge in these different areas. If you know that you've got an essay at the end that's going to take you, you know, at least 20 minutes, half hour to write, then you want to make sure that you allow for that time. So just be mindful of the time. So while you don't have to necessarily watch the clock, just again, be mindful. And lastly, focus on calm breathing and positive thoughts. So deep breathing will help, you know, if you feel your heart racing or you're drawing a blank, close your eyes and just focus on your breathing for a minute or two, and then revisit the question that's being asked of you. You know, it'll help, hopefully, you know, you to move forward. Does anybody have any questions, comments before we move on to the next activity? Okay, so I don't want you to, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's no questions in chat.
Okay, so the next activity is an activity, so don't get all anxious on me, okay? So, all right, so we're going to do, dun, 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 dun. I like these animation things. Try to keep your interest. We're going to do a timed aptitude test / activity, okay? So you will have 3 minutes to complete each item and receive full credit. And I want you to type all required responses in the chat section of our meeting, okay? Everybody clear? All right, so the next slide is going to show you the 15 items on this aptitude test. So I have my cell phone set for 3 minutes.
I have a question before we start. Do you want us to send you our responses privately or the
Nope.
chat?
It's nothing. Everything could just be indicated on the chat. We have a record of who's doing, indicating what. Like I said, it's an activity, so nothing to get real riled up about. And we're just timing it because I have other things to talk about. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Deep breath. All right. So here's your slide. And I'm starting the timer.
May I make a comment, or do I have to wait until the end of this thing before?
Wait until the end of this thing before.
Okay.
Rose, can we get a time check?
48 seconds left.
Thank you. And Rose, can you give a final countdown at 10 seconds when it gets there?
Okay. Okay, we're at 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The biggest
Time's
waste
up.
of 3 minutes. Tiffany, you continue to do me dirty. I mean, I got it. I read all the questions carefully before doing anything. And then I read 15 all the way through, and I'm like, really? And then I see people in the chat just like typing everything as you go, and I'm like, bruh, it was literally the first direction. Don't do anything.
You got it.
And then I had to sit here for 3 minutes
Yes.
and watch everybody
So did
slowly
we.
start to not get it. I'm like, okay.
Well, I guess, Rose, the question is, did anyone else just follow the instructions?
I did.
Oh, no.
Who was that? Faith. Okay, so first we have Faith. We
Oh,
have
yes.
Madison. Who else followed the instructions?
I did.
I did. That's Edward.
I did.
Nice.
That's Nimrose. Okay.
I did.
Oh, Barbara.
A lot of you went through every single instruction and followed. And Christy, you went through every single one of them. You're only supposed to do the first two. So you can't say me if you did all of them. That's not the point of the exercise.
She put oops.
Although you did good at following the other directions. But
That's the first time getting them all right still gives you an F.
I would have done the same thing, guys, because I would be so anxious to get all those
Just to get
questions
it done, right?
Yeah, that I wouldn't have read 15, even though I was supposed to read 15.
So that's
Rose, go ahead and give your spiel, and then I think you probably need to do a little debrief because we have so many that were on the wrong side of this thing, and you had about 4 or 5 that actually followed the instructions, and there's a lot of lessons learned here.
yeah, and again, I'm assuming maybe because it was deemed a test as opposed to an activity. I don't know that you felt more. Well, there's a lot of psychological components to the fact that it was timed, number one, and then you only had this 3-minute little block of time to tackle all these items. So again, it's a college student's nature. An engaged college student's nature to kind of jump in and just get it done. But it goes back to reading the instructions, looking at, and this is again the exam. I wanted you to live the example of you know, if this was an actual test and you turned it in, let's say you didn't get, you know, the timer ended at when you were on number 13, and you know you hand it in thinking, oh, you know, I only missed 2, but actually you ended up missing a lot more because you simply didn't follow the instructions. So take the time to read the instructions on your test, your assignments, and make sure you're doing what is asked of you. That's all. You know, if the professor wants fluff, they'll let you know. But for the most part, they want you to streamline your information, and you know, so you, by doing this activity, hopefully this will kind of catch you before just taking that leap and moving on to something that really has significance. You know, that, you know, I did include that statement, you know, in order to, what did I say? Oh, to complete each item to receive full credit. You know, the credit's up here. Hopefully it's a lesson learned.
Rose, in the chat, so there's at least 3 students who I guess misinterpreted number 1. So they interpreted the first question to just read the questions carefully and do everything.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to read all of the questions. So just to be clear, number 1 says read all questions carefully before doing anything. So the qualifier is before. You are supposed to read everything and do nothing until you've read all of the items and before you did anything. So reading all the questions was the first to do. And for those of you who interpreted that as just read each question carefully and do them all, that was where maybe, you know, there was an opportunity to ask an additional question. So Dina did start with an opening question. However, there maybe should have been a follow-up, or in reading that, I think you have to be very careful with the qualifiers in the sentence, because I think before doing anything was your clue that you had to read all 15 questions and then start the actual aptitude test. Rose, did you want to add anything to that, or was any further insights? Because I could see how it could kind of be a little ambiguous, and some people might view it in that, yeah, just read everything carefully, but do it all, because at the top it said complete each item to receive full credit. so you can see where it could go both ways.
Right. And obviously, because this was a little tricky thing going on, you know, the setup was to elicit exactly what had happened, you know, like, you know, if you have, I mean, there's certainly been times when I've been in, you know, sitting in a classroom where I'm in the middle of a test, and I've asked my professor, you know, and just double check the meaning of, you know, what I'm supposed to do, or this is my interpretation. Is that accurate? Do you mean this? You know, I've had them qualify their question, because again, they're human as well. That they're not gonna, if they mistype something on a test, you know, it just do what you can to understand and clarify if needed. And I don't know who was asking, if they who it was that wanted to chime in while the testing was, or the aptitude test was being delivered.
That was Madison. Madison. Oh. Yep.
And what specifically did you want to indicate during that time?
Madison, what did you wanted to say when we told you not to say anything till later?
Is she still there?
Did you fall asleep, Madison?
All right.
Well, in the meantime, Rose, let's go to Faith and Nimrose and Edward. They were the others who followed the instructions. And so for you, the instructions were ambiguous. And give us some insight as to, you know, what your logic was when you moved through this aptitude test. Faith, Nimrose, and Edward.
Tiffany, you're breaking up.
I don't know. The activity is jacked up right now. So Faith, Edward.
I mean, I'm always used to just reading everything and going over it first and making sure, like, I knew there was something coming like that. I knew there was, and I felt it. So I was like, all right, so I'll just read this. And I read it all the way, and of course, it turned out to be that, so.
Good. So you trusted your gut. That's an important thing to do. And maybe you didn't trust me. That could have been too.
How about Nimrose and Edward? What were your insights?
Well, I like to read everything ahead of time anyway to make sure if there's any questions that I don't understand or that I do know. So I'll do those before the other ones. Or if I need any kind of resources, like if it said like define something, then I know I'm gonna need a dictionary, so I pull up something or whatever resources I need.
Awesome. And Edward?
You know, it's pretty much, I read the first question. I knew there was probably a question in there somewhere that was going to tell me not to do anything.
Okay. So you were a little suspect, like Faith, when it came to the aptitude test, that there was some trickery going on somewhere.
Yep.
And you know what? At the end of the day, sometimes your intuition, your gut feeling is on point. You know, you can go with that. But that's usually a little indicator that, yeah, you know, let me go ahead and read through and see what this is all about. I think, Nimrose, you were spot on when you said, you know, I just, as a best practice, before I start my exam, I read everything, because there may be something along the way that will inform one of the other questions, whether it's a definition, whether it's just if it's a multiple choice, for example, and you may have some words in that multiple choice that may be similar to another question. So in reading through and understanding the entire test in its, you know, totality might help you with answering the questions first that you know, and in this case, getting to the end and realizing that you only had to answer questions 1 and 2, right?
Exactly. When I came upon question 11, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna need a calculator. All right, let's see what else I'm gonna need. And then I came to the 15th question and I'm like, oh, never mind.
I love that when you had your epiphany, you were like, there it is.
Well,
And
great
then
job, guys.
For
Truly.
Faith and Nimrose and Madison and Edward, once you read through your questions, while there were 3 minutes given, right? About how long did it take you to finish the test?
Like a minute.
Yep.
Didn't take
Yeah,
that
30
long.
seconds.
30
Yeah.
seconds.
About a minute.
And then what were you thinking as you watched? I'm breaking up again. What were you thinking when you saw the chat? All the questions were scrolling. All the answers were scrolling in the chat. Were you
I was
thinking,
laughing the
what
whole time. I was laughing. And my mom was standing right next to me too, and I was like telling her about it, and she was just laughing too. It's so funny. All these answers popping up. I'm like, oh my God, have they read it yet?
Yeah, I got a little worried if this was going to work because for a couple of, I don't know how many seconds it was, but the chat numbers were just staying stagnant and it wasn't, you know, nobody was typing in. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, maybe, I mean, not that that would be a bad thing that everybody got it. It certainly would be a good thing, but it would kind of, you know, it wouldn't have the same effect. So.
Rose, have you ever had an entire class get it? Never.
No,
Okay.
No.
What's the highest number of students that you've ever had get the answers right, like do it right?
You know, I honestly don't know. I would say a handful. And certainly we weren't typing in, they weren't typing in, they were supposed to like say these things out loud. So the people, so I'm standing in the front of the room, of course, and you know, you'd get that eye contact with the students who were in on the activity, and they would look up at me and giggle, you know, if somebody called out, I'm done, or, you know, or whatever, the shout out your last name or whatever it was. Yeah, it's just again, an interesting little activity that I always like this one. But you know, it's certainly, again, to demonstrate the importance of reading the instructions because it can get you into trouble. Clearly there was no points, nobody, well, a couple of you got an imaginary gold star for reading all the directions. But again, so this is something to kind of fall back on. Hopefully it'll, you know, be stored in your memory when you are taking a test that has multiple components or whatever, and you just want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what the expectation is. So Tiffany, I have 3 more slides. I know everybody's trying to get to you know, probably looking forward to lunch, but I'll just kind of go through these quickly. Oops. All right, so effective test taking strategies. So before a test, it's important to attend all your classes. You know, people who miss a class and you know, don't bother to get the notes or just aren't in the know. So much, especially if you have a class that meets once a week, that's typically a 3-hour block of time of information that was being shared that, you know, you might have missed. So it's really important. Keep up with all the reading assignments and note taking and all your homework. Again, all of these things will immerse you in that information and help you to be in the know. You want to make sure you find out from the professors. Hopefully they'll share this with you in terms of, okay, so you've got a test scheduled for Thursday. What chapters does it cover? What topics? What's the format? Is it going to be multiple choice? You know, short answer, essay questions, so that, again, not too many. There's a whole lot of people that don't like surprises when it comes to test taking. You want to be in the know and just so that you could be prepared. You want to make sure you're reviewing any study guides that may be available. And if the professors aren't actually handing them to you, your textbooks often will have resources for study guides. Check the end of chapter review questions. Again, they are often key subject areas that you'll see on your test. Set a study schedule to avoid cramming. So if you do it, in the time frame of day, whether it's that you're not going to fall asleep and that you're at your best to receive that information, it'll be helpful to you. So during a test, again, repeating positive affirmations. I got this. Don't choose, let's say choose to avoid the negative speak. I can't do it. I should have studied harder, blah, blah. That doesn't matter at that point in time. I got this. I'm going to do the best I can. And, and clearly if students don't do well on tests, many people don't at some time in their lives. So you develop strategy, well, what to do afterward. And we'll talk about that. You want to make sure that you read and follow directions carefully as per our little activity. You want to skim the test. Locate easy and difficult questions. You want to make sure that you understand the point value of each question. So if your essay is worth 50% of your question of the test, you may want to quickly go through and answer the questions that are less difficult for you, so you get those points under your belt, so to speak, and then maybe shift and focus on, as you're minding your time, take whether it's half the amount of time that you have left to devote to your essay, use a piece of scratch paper and start developing a little outline for yourself, so that way you have information that will flow, and making sure that the information that you're indicating is going to directly answer the questions that are being asked of you. Right. Also, doing easy questions will build confidence. And of course, like I said, you want to do questions with the highest point value as well. So if you left anything blank, make sure you go back if you have time, and take your best guess if you really have no clue. Even the process of elimination helps, certainly with the multiple choice questions as well. And again, if you have time at the end, review your answers and make sure that you are answering the questions being asked. So after a test, reward yourself, no matter how you did on the test, because you were, again, probably had some level of anxiety. I know at one of the sessions you guys were talking about how the cell phones or social media can kind of interfere with your schoolwork and whatnot. So even if it's or playing a video game, if for me, I loved Spider Solitaire. So after I was done studying or reading a chapter, I would allow myself one round of Spider Solitaire and then move on to the next thing. But it just helps to keep that momentum going. You want to review your notes and text for correct answers to questions that were missed or you were uncertain of. So if you walked away from your test thinking, this is how I answered this one particular question, but I'm not really sure if I got it right. Go back to your text or your notes and double check yourself, and then highlight that, because that same information may be on your final exam. So another thing to do is review your test when you get it back, and evaluate the points that you missed, and identify, categorize. Well, why do you think you missed it? Did you not study that section? Maybe you didn't think that particular chapter was going to be included. Maybe it was poor time management. You didn't allow yourself enough time to to take, I'm sorry, to prepare for the test, or even in when you were taking the test, if you kind of flip-flopped your time and spent more time doing something for less value of points, that you should have reallocated that time spending on something that was going to be more beneficial point-wise to you. Look at if you made careless mistakes, maybe you didn't read all the directions. And, you know, also check out, acknowledge the things that kind of cause you to blank out, you know, and create anxiety for yourself. Hopefully, and again, the more you develop these strategies, hopefully the less anxiety you're going to experience over time. You know, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And even creating, you know, sample tests for yourself and just kind of getting, you know, put a timer on and kind of simulate a testing environment for yourself. And the more you're immersed in that, it's going to feel less anxiety provoking and more, you're going to build up your comfort level. So by doing all of that, it'll help you identify what areas to work on for next time, because there will always be a next time, not only in college, but in life. So out of the strategies that we talked about, are there any that you really hadn't thought about implementing, but think it might work for you? Just, you
I
know,
got one.
go ahead.
I say like take great notes, like notes that you will be able to understand.
Good. Yep.
Yeah.
I guess like during the test, asking the teacher if you understand the directions correctly,
Good.
making sure that you understand.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Rewarding yourself after the test.
Yep. Important.
I would say do the questions that you know first. Complete all the questions that you know first.
All right. Anybody else have anything to share? Any questions? Okay. This is just my resources. And that's that.
And Rhodes, it's interesting that you use the Skip Downing textbook, because Skip Downing was actually the framework for the college student success factors inventory. If you notice that in Cengage.
Yep. I love his strategies and his philosophies of learning. So I like to incorporate a lot of his stuff. So.
And for all the summer scholars, the textbook is free to you through your Cengage subscription. So certainly that book is a really incredible resource for you to page through and get more insight regarding strategies that Rose shared today, but also, you know, just additional ones that you could personalize for yourself. And we're going to circle back to the results from your assessment. But that'll be more on a one-on-one session, and that may be even some advising sessions that may happen during the fall semester. So it may not necessarily happen as a function of the summer program, but just know that the results will be in your file, and we will have discussions at a later date. If there are no more questions for Rose, there were a couple questions in the chat about, you know, a few things to come. And I had mentioned yesterday about scheduling the Spark advising sessions. And so what I will do is I will text you. You'll get a text from me. And I'll let you know that it's Dean Warren. So when you get it, if you don't recognize my number, you'll at least know it's me. And you'll have a short phone meeting with me and let's see, I don't know, maybe we'll plan something. I don't know if Rose and Lisa are up for assisting with this. We'll talk offline, and I know that Sarah said that she'd like to support this. There's 21 of them. If between the 4 of us, that would be like 5 students apiece. So I think we could do some quick work there. But certainly there'll be, individualized conversations. It'll help all of us get to know each of you a little bit better. And it'll be all about constructive feedback and some Q&A, but I'll share more information with Lisa, Rose, and Sarah. So I had a few sessions. I had reached out to a couple students already for sessions today, and I will be sending some information out for some sessions tomorrow. Let's see our schedule for tomorrow morning. Actually, tomorrow we only have a brief check-in from 10 to 10:30, and we're gonna do some reflections from the DQ question that you were supposed to complete by 9:55 tomorrow morning, so we can talk about it at 10 o'clock. And our challenge, which I'm now calling it the 30-day challenge, because we started on July 21st and we're going to end around August 21st, so that's really 30 days. We're just going to do a little check-in to see how everybody's doing with the goal that they set for their own personal challenge. And then that'll be followed tomorrow by our individual Spark sessions, and everything should be done. And your individual Spark sessions, those are technically study blocks, unless you have your window of time where you're going to get your phone call and have the conversation with one of the 4 of us. Is that clear, or any questions about kind of what the Spark advising sessions are going to look like and what we're looking like for tomorrow morning?
So you're gonna call or email us?
I'm going to text you in advance to let you know what time your time slot is. So that way you'll expect a phone call. So when I send you your text, you'll know, okay, your Spark advising session is scheduled for Thursday, 11 o'clock with Rose Lynch.
Okay.
Okay, and then you'll know that at 11 o'clock when Rose gives you a call, that is your Spark advising session.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense?
Yes.
I want to, make sure I'm giving you the time and who will be reaching out to you, because you may not recognize Rose's number when she calls, but you'll know at 11 o'clock if a call's coming in, it's likely Rose.
If this is happening tomorrow, I'm going to be on campus, so it will come from the ISC's telephone number.
Telephone number.
And
Okay.
sure.
Yep. Yes. In the morning. I'm proposing that we do them in the morning. The block that I have here is from the 10:30 to about 12 o'clock.
Okay.
But your calls, if you only have 5 students, it may only take you like about a half an hour, or it'll take you probably just maybe that 1 hour window, unless you get chatty and you're making connections and so forth. But for the most part, the calls will be pretty brief. Everyone's doing pretty well, and so they're mostly just check-ins, but some of you will get some recommendations, and we'll share ideas, and we'll get a little insight as to how you're feeling up to the midpoint of the semester.
Hey Tiffany, before you set up my appointment, tomorrow in the morning I can't attend until 11, and then I can't attend at all in the afternoon. So basically I can't attend all day.
Wait a minute. Okay, so if you can't attend until 11, our actual morning session is only going to go from 10 to 10:30. So that means, Dina, that if you can attend at 11, then I'll probably make your appointment at 11.
Okay.
Will
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, at 11, because I have something to do in the morning.
Okay, so 11 a.m. Thursday. Does anyone else have any restrictions that I need to know about? So that way I'm not blocking you for a time that you're not available. Otherwise, they'll fall in that window between 10:30 and 12 o'clock. I know for potentially we may have some appointments that can fall within that 1 to 2:30. I personally am not available from 1 to 2:30 tomorrow, but Rose and Lisa, and I'll check with Sarah. If you're available, I can block some appointments in that window also.
Yep.
So I'll check in with you to see what your availability is. Rose, you're saying you're available?
Yep.
Okay. Lisa, what about you?
I'm good. If you just give me some more information on, you know, what
Yep.
we should be.
Will do. I sure will. Okay. And I don't know, maybe between just the three of us, we can get it done since Sarah's not on the call and she's not privy to all of this advanced information. It might just be easier because then I'll have to just re-explain everything again. So, questions about the discussion board post. So how long does the post need to be? It just needs to be comprehensive. So it doesn't have to be like multiple paragraphs, just simply answer the questions. I believe that you were supposed to identify your area of self-discipline and 5 things that would be kind of your to-dos to achieve it. And I can't recall the exact questions that I asked, but I think one of them was, how will you apply this to your academics? But yeah, just simply answer the questions. It's not, don't overthink it, is what I'll tell you. Do not overthink it. And then we're going to talk about it tomorrow and see, you know, kind of how we can help each other. And if there were any overlapping ideas or themes that came out of that particular discussion board post. And Lisa and Rose, I believe I made you guest faculty in the EOF summer course.
Okay.
And Barbara, you know what? I'll go in and I'll add you also, so that way you can see some of the discussion activity. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll do that today. So we've gone a little bit over, but the good news is you have study blocks this afternoon. So enjoy your lunch and try and get some work done this afternoon. We will see everyone except for Dina tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for a short debrief. And then we'll start with our advising sessions. And Rose and Lisa, I will chat with you offline a little bit later about what's going to happen with the Spark advising sessions, but I'm going to have everybody go to lunch. Enjoy. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, Rose, for an incredible workshop.
Bye bye.
Bye.